Welcome to this explainer. Okay, if you've ever stared at a Rolex in a dealer's window and wondered why that price tag feels, well, a whole lot more like a polite suggestion than an actual reality, you are absolutely in the right place. Today, we're going to completely demystify the 2026 Rolex catalog. We're looking at hard data across 22 key references, from the most accessible entry points right up to the absolute heavyweights, just to see what the secondary market is actually telling us about watch collecting right now. No guesswork here, just the numbers. Let's dive right in. So, $6,400 all the way up to a staggering $84,600. That's the crazy price span of the 22 watches we're analyzing today. But here's the catch. In this wild market, official retail prices often mean absolutely nothing. What a watch technically costs at an authorized dealer and what the open market actually values it at, yeah, those are two entirely different stories. To make sense of all this, we're going to decode the market through 6 clear themes. We'll cover the 2026 Rolex reality, the accessible baseline, color, hype, and nicknames, the scarcity multiplier, precious metal heavyweights, and finally, decoding the Rolex market. Starting off with Section 1, the 2026 Rolex reality. It's a highly complex market. The catalog today is actually more highly differentiated than ever before in the brand's history. A watch's value right now is dictated by this deeply complex mix. It really is the ultimate test of supply, demand, and cultural cachet. I mean, a piece of steel and mechanics just isn't valued by its MSRP anymore. Instead, it's driven by artificial scarcity, tiny aesthetic tweaks, or this rich historical heritage. It's an ecosystem where you literally have to look past the sticker price to see the truth. Moving on to Section 2, the accessible baseline, where supply perfectly meets demand. Interestingly enough, these baseline models trade basically flat to retail. Just look at the classic Oyster Perpetual 34, the Purist Submariner No Date, and the Explorer 2 Polar. The OP34 sits right around its $6,400 retail price. The Sub No Date hovers right at its $9,800 MSRP. Why is that? Well, because the market has actually priced them correctly. They are completely devoid of speculative hype. They aren't appreciating dramatically, but they aren't correcting dramatically either. It's just a highly stable baseline. And this brilliantly illustrates what happens when Rolex actively manages supply. The Explorer 2 Polar White is a professional model that frequently trades below its $10,600 retail price on the secondary market. Rolex meaningfully expanded production on this reference across 2025 and 2026, and the result? Waitlists cleared out, authorized dealer availability normalized, and those massive secondary premiums just instantly evaporated. It proves that when Rolex actually meets demand, retail pricing becomes the reality. All right, Section 3, color, hype, and nicknames. The real drivers of demand. Let's contrast the standard OP34 with the OP41 featuring the green lacquer dial. The 34 is clean, it's restrained, and it trades flat. But the OP41? Mechanically speaking, it's a simple steel automatic, but that bold color pushes it to 1.5 times its retail price. It jumps from $7,050 new to around $12,000 on the secondary market. It's wild. Rolex can generate massive premiums at literally any price point just by producing the right, fashion-forward color in limited numbers. But color isn't the only driver here. Community culture is a massive force. When collectors dubbed the black and green GMT Master 2 the Bruce Wayne for its stealthy billionaire aesthetic, the watch instantly commanded a massive 60 to 70% premium. I mean, at an $11,800 retail, it just shoots straight up to $19,000 on the secondary market. So the crucial point here is that nickname culture drives pure collector desire, which then translates directly into dollar value. And this nickname phenomenon creates these highly lucrative lineages. Back in 2003, we got the 50th anniversary Kermit. Then in 2010, the polarizing all-green Hulk. And in 2020, the current Starbucks with its green bezel and black dial. Because of this continuous, deeply documented collector narrative, the Starbucks consistently carries a 40 to 50% premium over its $11,900 retail price. The market richly rewards continuity in a collector's story. Now for Section 4, the scarcity multiplier. Let's talk about artificial shortage. The structural gap we see here is just visually arresting. The Pepsi GMT Master 2 retails for $11,550, yet pristine, full-set examples have peaked at an astonishing $67,750. You're looking at a 2 to 6 times retail premium. Why? It all comes down to a massive structural gap in Rolex's authorized dealer allocation system. The watches exist, sure, but they don't exist for the average buyer at retail. It's pure weaponized scarcity. The steel Daytona is another perfect example of this scarcity multiplier. Retailing at $16,900, it consistently trades between $30,000 and $34,000. It effectively doubles in value the second it leaves the boutique. Authorized dealers receive incredibly limited allocations for these, making it one of the absolute safest investments in the entire catalog. The demand from buyers who simply cannot access it through official channels sustains this massive premium year after year. But this astronomical demand isn't just about modern allocation limits, it is deeply rooted in history. It traces all the way back to 1960s motorsport culture. The association with actor Paul Newman, whose exotic dial Daytona sold at auction in 2017 for a staggering $17.7 million, well, that association cemented the reference's status permanently in a way that pure scarcity alone just couldn't have. On to Section 5. Precious metal heavyweights, the quiet, high-stakes market. I want you to consider the concept of unmanufactured cultural weight. The 18-karat yellow gold Day-Date 40 President retails for just over $50,000, and it trades almost exactly at, or maybe slightly above, that price on the secondary market. It holds its value phenomenally well, but not because of internet hype. It's because for 7 decades, it has been worn by world leaders and heads of state. That association with ultimate success was accumulated authentically over a very long time. It definitely wasn't manufactured overnight. And when Rolex wants to signal the absolute pinnacle of their material hierarchy, they use very specific visual cues. Take the ice blue dial, for example. It's an exclusive color used solely to signal that a watch case is constructed from solid platinum. Whether it's on the Day-Date or the Cosmograph Daytona, that cool blue tone instantly identifies the watch as the absolute rarest format Rolex produces. It's a total flex, but a subtle one. Concluding our market breakdown is the ultimate heavyweight, the platinum Daytona with that gorgeous ice blue dial. Now it retails for $84,600 and trades between $95,000 and $110,000. Notice that this 10 to 30% premium is proportionally much smaller than the double retail gap of the steel Daytona. Why is that? Because absolute scarcity creates a highly deliberate collector pool. The people who buy an $84,000 watch rarely, if ever, sell it. The market for this is smaller, it's quieter, but it is incredibly solid. Finally, Section 6, Decoding the Rolex Market and the 4 Rules of Value. Synthesizing all this data proves that the secondary market isn't arbitrary at all. It actually perfectly follows 4 distinct rules. Rule 1, scarcity of supply relative to demand, like the Pepsi's massive allocation gap. 2, collector nickname culture, like the Bruce Wayne's instant hype. 3, material exclusivity, like that ice blue dial signaling platinum. And Rule 4, correct vintage proportions, like the 36mm Explorer returning to its 1953 roots. This right here is the underlying physics of the Rolex economy. Which brings us to the final question. You now know exactly how the mechanics of this market operate. You know why the hype exists, why the baseline sits flat, and where the real scarcity actually lies. So, based on these very real market rules, which of these market categories would you personally invest in? Or, honestly, better yet, which one would you want to wear on your wrist? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.